For this lesson, we're going to take a look at calculating some probability. The example problem we have here on the screen right now says, what is the probability of getting heads twice when flipping a coin 3 times? Well, a good way of calculating this is using a probability tree. If I took a look at flipping a coin, well, the first flip for this coin, first time I flipped it, I'm going to have 2 possible outcomes, either heads or tails. Now the second time I flip the coin, each of these outcomes has a second possibility. Heads, I flip it again, I could have heads or tails. Tails, I flip it again, I could have heads or tails. I go to flip the coin a third time. Each of these outcomes has a pair of possible outcomes. So heads here could have been heads or tails. Tails here could have been heads or tails. Heads or tails here. And heads or tails here. So we've come through and calculated all of these different possible outcomes. Now, to bring it all together and make it so we can answer this question, what we want to do is trace through all of the possible scenarios of our 3 coin flips. So if I look at heads, 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 that is one possible outcome. I have heads, heads, and then we go tails. Now, when I go up here, I go heads. Now I want to hit tails and go down and hit heads. So now it's heads, tails, heads. Same thing, heads, tails, then tails. And now we want to go over to the tails side for the first outcome. So we have tails, heads, heads. Tails, heads, tails. Tails, tails, heads. And tails, tails, tails. So altogether we have 8 possible outcomes. 4 here, 4 there. So we have a total of 8 possible outcomes. Of those 8 outcomes, let's look at how many of them are favorable to what we're looking for. Because remember, probability is always the number of favorable outcomes over possible outcomes. So the favorable outcomes, getting heads twice, then flipping a coin, when flipping a coin 3 times. Well, here's ones where it was at least twice. Another time. There's another one. This one, not so much. This one here was no, no, no. So of our 8 outcomes, 4 of the 8 generated the result we were looking for. We got heads twice, at least 4 times out of the 8 possible. We reduce that. The probability of getting heads twice is a half. So again, probability of heads twice is 1/2. 1 out of 2, 4 out of the possible 8 outcomes. Now if we looked at something a little bit more simple, and maybe not so much simple as just something we see pretty regularly. If we were given a circle, we see these all the time. And on that circle, a lot of times they'll divide it up into 4 sectors. In those sectors, a lot of times they'll put letters or numbers. And they'll do something like say, what's the probability of finding a consonant if this was a spinner? So say we had a spinner out here. We spun it around, it went around, round, 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 and landed on one of the sectors. Well, the probability of finding a consonant, we would say, well, there's 4 possible outcomes. Of those 4, 3 of them are consonants, B, C, and D. So our probability would be 3/4. if they wanted to say the probability of getting a B. Well, again, we still have 4 possible outcomes. Of those 4 outcomes, if we were to spin the spinner, only one of them could be the one we're looking for, so probability would be 1/4. So remember, when we're looking for probability, we're looking for the favorable outcomes over the possible outcomes. That's probability.